fistful of tar. Oh wow. Superb within the realms of mediocrity. Is Burger King coffee better than Starbucks? Well, today we're gonna find out because this is episode 1 of the Coffee Chain Challenge, where I'm going through and tasting 18 different coffees from chain restaurants to find out who has the best chain coffee. I'm Emery, the coffee roaster here at Wilson & Claire Coffee. So in today's episode, I'm doing a blind taste test of Starbucks, Burger King, and Jack's. Let's find out who's the best. All right, so at first glance, these coffees all look relatively similar as far as like the color of the coffees. Not a lot to differentiate these coffees just by at least the look. Now let's go ahead and just take a sip. All right, has a fairly kind of standard coffee taste, you know? Some of that nuttiness that you kind of expect from like any average coffee. Definitely a decent amount of bitterness as an aftertaste. You know, not necessarily my go-to coffee. Yeah, but overall, I'd say a fairly, you know, average level coffee. Let me rinse my spoon and move on to the next one. Oh, wow. Oh, wow. That is not very pleasant. Yeah, this is very dark. Very dark. Which is interesting because all these are supposed to be middle of the road coffees. So I wasn't expecting anything that was supposed to be a dark roasted coffee. But yeah, that's very dark. Maybe I could get some dark chocolate notes out of that, but really not much of anything if I'm being honest. All right, let's try this next one. Oh. Like the initial taste up front was like very pleasant coffee, then all of a sudden I got hit with this like fistful of tar in the face. That wasn't very pleasant at all. Yeah, up front is actually some very nice, like nutty, almost chocolate, maybe a hint of fruit flavors. Oh no, that may be a little too bold. Yeah, that's actually fairly decent. But man, the aftertaste is like, it's like it just snuck into the back of your throat, and then when you weren't looking, it coated yourself in like a layer of tar. But that initial upfront flavor makes me want to keep going back for more. I don't understand it. So before I go through one more kind of test sips of these, let me kind of explain some of the rules of this coffee chain challenge. So between these 3 coffees, one will be ranked number 1 and will get 3 points. Second place will get 1 point, and then third place will get 0 points. And each week we'll go through another set of 3 coffees to find out how they stack up against each other. And then in the end, we'll crown a coffee chain champion. So stay tuned for that. All right, so let's jump into one more round before I make my final decisions on these coffees. All right, starting off over here. Yeah, very average coffee. You know, it's like nothing noteworthy, but nothing noteworthy positive or negative. But at the end of the day, it's very pleasant. You know, if I was like, hey, I just want to stop by, get a quick cup of coffee, something that's going to be pleasant, you know, I might go with that guy. All right, and this middle guy again. Okay, so I am getting a little bit of dark chocolate in it, but really just the darkness of this roast is not pleasant at all. Yeah, not too crazy about that guy. I will say that the aftertaste, even though it's bitter, is very much of coffee, you know? I feel like this guy's aftertaste was of like just straight tar, whereas this one was like aftertaste of like, this was coffee and this will be coffee, you know? All right, last but not least. Yeah, such a pleasant upfront flavor, but that aftertaste is just so nasty, man. Let's just jump into it. I feel like right now I want to give this guy first place. I really want to because that upfront flavor is just absolutely superb within the realms of mediocrity, if that makes sense. But that aftertaste is just like, I feel like I'm having a debate within myself of like, do I want to take another sip? That first sip is so good. And then I'm like telling myself, no, you know how bad that aftertaste is going to be. So I think if I'm going to rate them, my number 3 coffee is obviously going to be this middle guy. I mean, just too much dark bitterness, not really pleasant at all. The number 2, this is going to be number 2, because that pleasant upfront taste is fantastic. But, I mean, it can't make up for how nasty that aftertaste is. That just tar flavor afterward, maybe a little bit of burnt rubber if I'm trying to be a little more generous. It's not enough motivation to make me continue to go back for that little bit of pleasant upfront taste. So that leaves me with number 1 is this guy. Now this is a very mediocre number 1. You know, it's pleasant because of the fact it's not overly good, it's not overly bad. It really has very little personality. It's almost like it's not daring greatness. You know, it's one thing to dare something greatly and then fail, which I don't know if they're actually daring something greatly, but it has no personality. But I will say that if I wanted a fast chain coffee, I probably want something that's not gonna like give me some negative aftertaste afterwards. All right, so now for the grand reveal. Underneath these cups, we have the labels, which explains which coffee is which. So let's find out, starting with third place. Who is our third place coffee today? Oh my goodness. We got Starbucks, folks. Starbucks is in third place. Now, this is their Pike's Place roast, and if you stay tuned for the full coffee chain challenge, I'm gonna be reviewing all of Starbucks drip coffees, which is like a blonde roast, a dark roast, I believe, and then their Pike's Place. So this is their Pike's Place, which is really surprising because I thought that Pike's Place would be a little bit more middle of the road, and this is definitely much darker than something that I'd be interested in. So number 3, we have Starbucks, the bottom of the barrel. Okay, so now for number 2. Who's gonna come in number 2? Oh my goodness, folks, we got Burger King. Burger King is the number 2. Lots of great up front flavor with just nothing but tar to remind you of that coffee afterwards, which means first place, kind of like the underdog, who I never would have expected to even be in this competition. Jack's, friends, Jack's fast food restaurant. I don't even know, do they have a longer name? Jack's? Is it just Jack? Anyways, Jack's Coffee, number 1 out of these 3 coffees. Now, mind you, this number 1 is number one that doesn't have much personality. So in the grand scheme of things, it's not spectacular. But folks, if you're looking between Burger King, Starbucks, or Jack's, stop by Jack's. Get you some mediocre coffee that doesn't have much personality, but at least it's not bitter. Now, next up, to find out who has the best coffee between McDonald's, Bojangles, and Crystal, check out this video over here.